Howdy, and welcome back to episode 7. It's been a while since we've been back. I got full time at my job, and everyone else has crazy schedules, so we try to do this as we can. Um, so we'll try to be over here every Sunday, but it's not always going to happen, and I apologize. But today we'll be talking about map voting. Joan's going to fill us with despair and depression about the armors. I feel like that's a nice lead into to your talk because it's going to be, and you know it's going to be. Don't even try to lie and hide, Joden. And then we're going to be talking about something that came up in a discussion about prisons in Illyria. I have very strong opinions about this, and I think I voiced them back when I was on Town Crier. But we'll talk about that as our last little topic. So how are you all doing before we jump into the cool stuff that's happening for map voting?
Doing good so far. Got a major test coming up I'm studying for, but besides that, pretty good.
What's your test on?
Everything civil engineering.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I just took my
I've got a bunch
syllables.
of
Go ahead.
yeah, I've got a bunch of homework due tonight too, but thankfully not civil engineering level homework, so feeling pretty good about that.
That's good. I just took my civil service exam, so hopefully that goes well. We'll see.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right, so we finally have map voting. It's been teased for basically a year now, and it's finally here. It'll be here tomorrow. Are you guys excited about it? Or are you just like, I'm so burnt out from everything else that's happened that I just don't have any excitement left in me? How are you guys feeling about just map voting being here now?
Meh. I'm waiting for you to just at me to point and vote at something. So
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling too. Like I thought I was gonna be really excited, but now that it's here, I'm just kind of like, well, I honestly just want to play the game at this point.
That's fair. It's been teased for so long. It's sort of like the Crowfall effect, where like I'm no longer as hyped about Crowfall as I was, just because like it's been there for what 4 years now almost, and it's just like it's a thing that's gonna be there at some point. So I guess I'm in the same sort of boat. I'm not terribly excited about map voting, but like it's at least a milestone where I'm like, oh, this is a thing that I could
Yeah.
think about for maybe a couple days. So jumping into that, are there any sort of cool map design that you would like to see? Is there any sort of map formations, like maybe like an archipelago, or like I don't know, the craziest drawing of a mad raving lunatic? I have no idea. Is there a particular topography or style that you like? Is there like a particular map that you like in fantasy that you like to see here? I see Joden shaking his head no.
I feel like it's really lame and boring because it's like the real world. But I really like continent maps just because it forces you to get that like ocean exploration if you want to get to the other continents.
Hmm.
So I think that would be good to see.
I think I probably liked Archipelago just because it sort of provides a more interesting dynamic, I think, especially for NAE server, where there is a high level of tension. Sort of to sort of have two realms that are maybe separated by just a little bit of water would be kind of, I think, interesting rather than just having it be
Hmm.
where they're just, staging grounds and everything else like that. That would be so kind of typical of maps. But I have no idea what we're gonna get, so I'm curious to see. I know there's a lot of politics that's gonna end up happening, at least in my area and probably for Kairos and whatnot. Because boy, does that determine so much stuff for the kingdom level. But I can also kind of understand that map voting is not an exciting moment for anyone that's not either a duke or a king, just because it's so almost irrelevant for everyone else from what I'm getting and gathering from like people. Do you feel like the same
Yeah.
way that this is that any of your input that sort of kind of doesn't matter and it's just you know you wouldn't really care so much about what the map was so much as like what it meant politically, I guess.
I only care where we are going to be positioned in the map. So
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I'm very curious on how the politics will shake out. We know Vornare currently wants the north, and we know that we want basically what is the south. So it'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see what the south versus north conundrum ends up shaking out in. Because boy, would it be really awful if like we get boxed in, like we get a map where like the South is just boxed in by Vornair. I think that would probably be our big doomsday scenario. I think for most of us. So I think that's where my concern is that we'll be put into a sort of a known situation where we're already sort of in a losing battle. And that's my biggest concern about what the map will shake out to be, and that's where I think the politics comes interesting. But I also think we have little say as far as Kairos goes, just because Kairos is significantly smaller than everything but Fortuna. So who knows how it will play out, but I guess I'm looking forward to seeing how it does, even though it's kind of makes me a little bit nervous.
Have you guys looked at the actual rules for the map voting? I thought those were kind of interesting.
The fact that like IP has more of an effect than just domain selection, yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen people commenting about that, and I'm like, why does it matter that a commoner gets IP for their votes and stuff? Because they don't really like this shouldn't matter to them. I've seen those arguments popping up a lot now. I think it's fair. I think it gives them some sway, and honestly, while the big players of like the Kings and the Dukes will definitely get some stake in it, at the end of the day, where their groups are positioned also heavily affects everyone. So I can see the argument both sides that like, yeah, if if the king gets screwed over, then it also means that everyone else gets screwed over. So why shouldn't they also have an equal say too? So who knows? Do you
I
think
think it's
IP
just
should?
a cool way to kind of be respectful of other people's contributions to the game. Like some of my influence points are from things I've purchased from the stores. From when it was initially starting, I helped out with the wiki a lot. So it's kind of cool to have that come back in a little bit more of a tangible way.
For sure. Jordan,
Oh,
do you
I
have any
remember I
feelings?
contributed.
What?
Remember when I contributed to the Kickstarter? I still haven't gotten anything from that.
I remember when you
Shit.
did that big what is it? The giant list
The
of
list
rewards and add-ons and things.
Oh
was
yeah.
the one that was. I guess was it copy pasta or did they make their own?
I think it was copy pasted. I think
Oh
maybe they might have made their own some way through, but I remember they were using it for a while. So
yeah.
I know, Jordan. I know.
First this Excel spreadsheet, and then my second love armor.
Do you get any rewards IP wise from all of your comments about how bad their armor is?
Hey man, their armor is great. What are you talking about? The fuck, man? What are you talking about?
Yeah, huh. I've always known you as the cool, calm, collected, level-headed person who has no strong feelings in any
Uh,
direction about armor. That's what I've known
or
you as.
or medieval combat, none of that. Because obviously everybody else on the internet thinks that they're right, and they're like, "Oh man, because it looks cool, it's good, I guess." But whatever, fuck it,
And that'll be our segue into armor.
Oh
Because
no,
I don't think there's much to talk about for map voting. It's something that's gonna happen. We'll probably give you a play-by-play report next week of what ends up happening, what the votes are looking like, where we stand on it. Um, because it's basically public knowledge. Everyone's stances on things are kind of public. Nobody's really trying to shy away from that at the moment, I don't think. But yeah. So Jordan, what are your thoughts about the latest armor reveals? You have any hot takes for us?
you got leaf armor, you got chain on your face armor, and you got like really scary leather Jason armor.
The
Two of
pinhead
them.
stuff. That's what I've been seeing in our chat. Is like the pinhead armor, where they're just
Yeah,
like little pins and just like, what is this? Is this like Hellraiser? Like, what are we doing here?
because studded leather was a thing.
But still
It
leather on the
wasn't.
helm.
No, I mean, yeah. Like I'm looking at it. I'm just saying. I mean, I see what they're saying. They're like, oh, we got like little pieces of stone on there that's supposed to add defense and shit. But it's like, but what's up with the pins on the edge, dude?
I
Like,
has my big question for you from seeing that armor with all the pins in it is that common
no,
armor?
no.
No. Are you
Where
telling me
the
that that's
hell?
not realistic in any way? That knights can just have just random pins in the helmets?
No. Just they didn't have random shit. They had rivets, maybe. and
Those,
like
those look a
looking
little bit
down on the
spiky
things.
to be rivets to me.
Yeah, no, I know, and like how elongated the face is, so it's like good luck looking down without like shifting the helmet off your head. I don't know. There's just I don't know, man. It's getting too fantastical for me right now.
I mean, that was the loophole, is that if they were to make the armor more fantastical, that you wouldn't have really any complaints.
And that's what's happening right now. It's like it's gotten like, whoa, I can't even comment on this because hot damn.
I do have
Materials
a
and
question
obsidian.
for you, Jordan. Is the biomechanics of the lining good now?
No, no, not even in the slightest, dude. I mean, like maybe in the Dross armor, I guess, because they do have like little weavings in between, but it's like it's begging for you to get stabbed in between the gaps. Because you can see the threads that's connecting the individual plates, and plus
Mhm.
the stomach's a little too large, and it's not segmented enough. Because if you see like how tassets work, it's like usually really segmented going all the way up to the chest, whereas the center is just like a single chunk. It's like if you had like pretend like you have those kind of whatchamacallit, those weightlifting belts, but like really tight across your chest and bigger. You can't crunch down. It's meant to hold your back straight.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know nothing about this, so I always defer to you. But I do want to eventually, one of these days, when we get far enough into development where we have more armor sets, I sort of want to have an entire episode that's just dedicated to Jotun through the ages. Like we can go back to look at all your posts where you're really excited about things and where you're just like just trying to be helpful, and then we can just go through and see you slowly, like we can have like a chart and like a graph that's like Jotun's happiness over time, and it just ascends downwards. There is no upward trend at all. It's
Like
just a downward
it's
slope.
it's like an armor post to activity level. Then you'll see like as more armor posts are being made, you see like my activity levels like dropping significantly.
We can even have it to like some really bad sounding music, like where it's just like end of the world apocalypse stuff, where it's just dropping down and just going negative.
In the background, you just have like a gray image of me like putting my hand on my head.
The
Just, like, slowly
the sad
rotating.
Indian, it was just crying and just pointing
Oh
at him.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean fucking leaf armor, dude.
Oh my god. I'm if you haven't joined and you're interested, I would say check out the Arms and Armor if this is appealing to anyone that's watching. They're good people, don't troll them please. Cause boy, I do have to say I don't really care about the aesthetics. Like they're fine, I guess, but I do sort of want sort of a functional thing, even if I'm not very big on functionality versus aesthetics. I also don't find the aesthetics appealing to me either way, so I would rather have it functional if it's also going to be just as unappealing as this. Because boy, I'm not enthused by the Dross medium armor look, or really any of the Dross looks, or
You see
most of the other.
large chainmail, like you can't even see shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
can
not.
we talk about the word light armor, where it's literally just cloth draped over them
I-
and their back is exposed?
I believe I read in the Discord somewhere or something like that. That was a mistake. That's just just clothing.
Oh,
And the
okay.
light armor is actually what they labeled medium armor.
Oh, okay.
So that could be a typo on their part. So I'll give them that. But at the same time, fucking, you're gonna have chain in your face in the sun.
Yeah, that's what makes me a little weird about it.
We're gonna make it realistic. You know, you gotta take into account heat and shit. Don't mind this chain in your face. But then we're gonna put a piece of cloth over it so you don't get burnt. All right, cool. Make it even harder to breathe in the desert.
Yeah, that's my where I thought about that. I was like, wait a second, why would they be wearing this kind of thing in the super hot desert?
Yes.
I was like, this is so much. This is more than it should be. I don't understand anything that's going on. Especially because they also don't currently fight in pitched battles. So what would hold the whole point of legitimately even having this armor to begin with?
Because it looks cool.
I guess, but
Kinda,
like,
to
if you
some
don't fight
people.
in pitched battles, why do you need such heavy-looking armor?
I mean, a lot of people don't also realize too. It's like the heaviest part of a suit of armor, especially the 14th century when they didn't have the back plates in the chest, is actually the chainmail. It's like 80% of the weight. So this light armor is actually really freaking heavy.
So I get the whole thing about facelessness and fine, but like, does it have to be facelessness with chainmail?
Yeah,
Like, is that
then something else, like the cloth or something. I don't know. Like, make it so you can breathe.
Yeah, I mean, masks are a thing. You can make a cloth mask. You can make like anything else, and have a full hood and whatnot. But like, you have a shroud, but it doesn't have to be made of chainmail. It feels weird. It feels very weird.
I mean, I can keep ranting. You want me to keep ranting?
It's fine if you want to keep ranting.
No, no, no. I'm good. I mean, but I could keep going. Ah, man. It's like, remember back in the day when I was like, hey, man, you got clipping, or hey, man, that armor you're selecting from is actually from 18th century Napoleonic sort of stuff. So
Yeah, back when
technically,
you
it
were
wouldn't
like,
fire.
maybe if I give them enough proof that they're wrong, they'll change their minds. Oh, how naive you were.
Hey, man, it wasn't necessarily like you have to follow this specific pattern of like armor and stuff. It's more like, could you make it function? I mean, you can make it out of whatever, but like if you look at the hold on, like if you look at the fucking Dross armor, it's like if you have pieces of stone protruding out, if it is segmented in such a way that if somebody stabs at any of those stones, it's going to guide the blade into the softer bits.
Yeah, I don't know like what to do with this. The fact that their armor's so.
Fantastical. It's gotten like full circle. At the very beginning, they were talking about like, oh, look at this, we're doing the Princess Bride sort of combat, or oh, we have our guys always running around with some plate mail. Oh man, we recorded people jousting. Oh shit, man, we're getting some information. Like they're doing like it's like 40-pound, 50-pound armor. We're getting like these hyper realistic, information, and then Dross armor. No, and then Leaf armor. Whatever, whatever. I'm good. I'm good.
I'm also
I'm good.
confused
I'm
because
good.
within the weird armor, it's on the battlefield. But wait a second, they can't fight in pitched battle. So what battlefield? Like, where is this battlefield taking place? What battle? I don't understand. That feels again weird to me because again, they can't fight in pitched battle. So what battlefield? I thought it was mostly assassins or smaller subsets and smaller skirmishes rather than an actual pitched battle fight. So which battlefield are they fighting and how are they even fighting in that battlefield? If culturally the problem is that they don't fight pitch battles, why are we talking about a battlefield anywhere in this post?
They got to fight outside their biome sooner or later, right?
They do, but they still it's in the write up. They don't fight in pitch battles. That's their con. So even if they do fight in their someone else's biome or their biome, that's their con. So
Eh,
is it a fluctuating con that they can sometimes fight in pitch battles, but only in certain rare circumstances because we say so, or is it like they actually can't get into bitch battles ever?
Uh, but at the same time, it's like, are you going to tell the individual player who comes in, who is a Drass, who does not know the lore, and say, hey, you can't fight in an open field? I think this is just them giving them just a suit of armor, just cause.
Yeah, I know. It's just weird
I
that they would list that as an actual con
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
weird that they can't fight in pitch battles, and then be like, oh yeah, you can fight in pitch battles. And here's an armor that would basically seem to say that they fight in pitch battles. So it's just odd. That's all. But anyway,
Oh
we're
yeah.
gonna get to a more lengthy discussion, and this is our discussion topic. This is gonna be another short episode, um, just because. But I think this will probably be a bigger discussion because I think I want to hear from both of you guys since you have two different sort of styles of gameplay. I think, with Johan being the more combat heavy person that just wants to stab all the things all the time, and you
No,
know that's true, Jordan.
no.
And Stealthwire being more of the animal husbandry person to Nito's. I also want to stab all the things all the times. Style gameplay.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the prison system? There was a discussion. I caught the tail end of it, of from Caspian Invoice a few days ago, about maybe putting in a prison system if they could figure out how to get it to work. Do you feel that a prison system might be good in some way or not? And we'll discuss all the things about because I actually want to have a sort of a deep discussion on it as a topic. Um, what are your thoughts about how to mitigate player behavior in any way? Do you think a prison system would be good? Do you think what they have is sufficient? Is there some other idea that you would like to see them implement? I'm gonna pass it to you guys without giving my input this time. So
I don't even know what they have for their prison system right now.
they don't
I
currently have a
remember
prison
there
system set
being
up. It's all in talk.
I remember there being a debate about this like early on, like shortly after Kickstarter, and there's talks about like different, different ways that they could go about designing it. I don't remember what specifically people said. I've been trying to find it on the forums. I don't see anything, but
I
I think as long as the contract system is strong enough that they don't necessarily need to create a whole like new jail system in place, because within an individual town you can assign people to be the jailers, like to making sure that nobody's escaping and that sort of thing, right? So
Well, this way, I believe what they had discussed, or the discussion topic was, from the community, not from Caspian. This was just whatever I was hearing in the voice channels. Was that it'd be a punitive thing where essentially there would be a whole gameplay aspect to it where you could try to escape or build contacts within the prison or anything else like that, like a mob boss kind of thing, which I guess is okay. But also, then you would be out of the game world in a sense where you wouldn't be able to do anything. You would just be in the prison for a real life amount of time. That could be, a couple hours or, an hour or something like that, where you just essentially your ability to play the game is reduced in some fashion, or the gameplay that you were wanting is reduced in some fashion. They've also talked about making you do community service as a punishment. How you would even track that, I have no idea. But that's what the community was talking about, at least at the time that I jumped into Voice Channel, was either a prison where you're essentially taken out of the game world to some extent, or where you are forced to do some sort of community service activity or community good activity as extra punishment that you would face for crimes or whatever.
I think in a game where it's so much focused on the player aspect of the players creating the world and the towns and everything, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to make it like removed from the rest of the game. I think it's really up to the individual communities how strong their prison system is going to be.
Yeah, essentially. Because we don't really currently have a prison system. There's no way to keep characters locked in, but there's certainly ways to punish people outside of just killing them. Like, if death is the only way that you can punish someone, then boy, how does Eve get away with all the stuff that Eve does? Because you can just get blacklisted in areas and just never be able to farm there ever, and that hurts some people majorly.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, you are quiet.
Well, I mean, I have different ideas, but
Go ahead.
okay. So I always assumed that like you getting caught, you getting in trouble, would just be taking a hit on your soul spark or whatever. Like you have a higher chance of actually permanently dying because it's more strained or something like that.
Mhm.
That if you were to go to prison, I always assumed that it would be like an optional thing where potentially like you get caught, bam, it's deducted, but you have an option that says, you know what, I'll go to prison, let me see if I can escape. And then I can reduce that punishment. Or if I do the civil service, it'll reduce that punishment. Like in terms of like the the soul spark getting taken away from you.
That was one of the thoughts, is that it would be an optional choice where instead of just getting a soul loss hit, you you can optionally take prison time. Um, that was one thing that I saw circulated around. Like I said, I didn't really get to hear Caspian's opinion because I got in a lot later than it seemed the conversation happened. But
Yeah.
that's what people were saying, was that it would be an optional choice. Um, does that make it any better for yourself if there's sort of an optional gameplay choice to it, where you can either just take the normal spirit loss hit or go to this sort of extra game prison thing to try to be that cool badass rogue that nobody's gonna end up being because nobody's really that cool?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
it's if you try to force somebody from playing the game that they want to play when they have a limited amount of time, because we're all usually busy, and shoving them in a prison, nobody's gonna want to play the game. So making it an option to say, hey, if you take,
Well, and don't get caught.
yeah, no, yeah. But at the
I don't
same
know.
time, some of us
I
are
mean,
like,
there's supposed to be consequences for your actions, and I think that with the way that I imagine Chronicles of Elyria, from everything that I've read about the game and whatnot throughout its development, it seems like it's supposed to be like a player-led thing. So it doesn't make sense to me to take it out of the game. I do think it makes sense to kind of have like that hit on your soul and your actual like lifespan a little bit, but I think that would require a little bit more effort on like the GM's part. So I'm not sure how that would work out like logistically.
There might be like a crime category sort of hit, like, did the person
Yeah.
commit murder? They'll get this much, of their soul spark taken away. But again,
Mhm.
like I see your point of view of like, well, they shouldn't be doing the crime. Or else they'll be stuck in jail. But it's like it's a video game. Like you don't want
Yeah, I
to.
mean, like there should. I expect there to be, people who are committing crimes and things like that. Adds an extra element to the game and adds challenge to the game. But at the same time, I think that to not have any like form of punishment for that
I see
doesn't
it.
make sense.
You all right. So I'm
Like
I'm
it
seeing
it has
your.
to add a challenge also like to the people committing the crime, that if they can't do it well, if they can't be sneaky enough, if they can't be smart enough, then they're gonna get stuck in jail.
Okay, so I guess your form of punishment is in terms of like time as well and locking them out. But I guess like for me, it's like I guess the soul spark removal is like enough of a punishment. Like, oh, that's like weeks of my game time that was taken away because I goofed up.
But yeah, but it's not like the sparks are expensive, so I'm
True.
being
Okay.
honest
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
Yeah. I see your point. But at the same time, it's like if you do that, then you'd have to make a new character. Then you have to start from scratch.
yeah, that's true.
So there's a punishment of like if I want to make this optimal run for this life, I'd better not get caught because if I
Hmm.
get caught, then I can't optimize my character as much. And those are like I guess the min maxers. They would act that way. So I guess having part of their souls removed would it should be sufficient enough punishment, but giving them the option to go to jail to see if they can sneak out, or if they do community service to reduce the amount of punishment, I
Hmm.
think would be enough. Physically, without their say removing them from the game, it's a bit much, especially since the game almost promotes you to do criminal stuff
Hmm.
to not get caught. So
I also think
it's
an interesting question is, talking about, creating a new character and everything, you're not necessarily starting from scratch because you can still use the same soul,
yes,
right?
yeah, but you still
So
start from still
how
start from
right,
level
but
one.
how will that affect your next lifetime? Like how does that affect your overall destiny and all of that? I think that's kind of an interesting aspect to it, is if you do have these hits on your life from all this criminal activity, how's that going to affect your long-term play?
Yeah, so like maybe the bounty like gets passed down to the next generation. That would suck. Yeah,
So I have one question to add sort of an interesting spin on this. How does the fact that you can wrongly accuse somebody or falsify evidence to accuse someone that did not commit any crimes
see that
change the way we view a punishment system?
exactly like sort of I'm that's what I was thinking too. At the same time, it's like why just to hit on the life or being able to counteract that punishment should be a mechanic that you are allowed to do as an option. So you're not being forced into a like jail system because you've been wrongly accused, but you can still fight back for your sparks. Kind of, I don't know. It's weird,
It
but
is weird. I think the entire thing for the crime system in this game, I still don't know if I fully understand how it's supposed to work.
I think it's really just going to come down to the player communities. Like I said before, I think it's going to come down to how strong your jail system is and what your justice system is and all of that, to see how that really plays out. I mean, in real life, we have people who are wrongly accused of things all the time, and they serve jail time for it.
Yeah. Because the interesting thing is that some of that is also kind of taken away from us in our ability to make choices in that way for like how our system might be. Like for example, let's say I make Jotun or Nito a judge in this case for crimes,
everybody's fucked.
and they always prosecute crimes in X fashion. However,
Mm-hmm.
when they log off and they have a case presented to them, does the AI then continue prosecuting and judging cases in X manner, or does it now go back to the normal lawful manner as if it was a dumb sort of AI then wasn't recognizing
Well,
either
doesn't that come down to
cultural
your scripting?
to some extent, but they also said like a sheriff that like has let people off the hook for certain crimes because of X or Y reason, they'll go back to the regular lawful thing that they're supposed to be doing the second they log off.
Hmm.
So I wonder how much that sort of affects it, and if we could in a sense script it to say, oh, when Sneric does a crime, he doesn't get any penalties in the judge system, like that sort of thing? Or is it just like an all or nothing, either I accept all laws or I accept none of the laws? Or how granular can we get that sort of thing? Can we put in a corruption to the code itself? That seems weird.
Put in an email system, so I'll check my email every day. Yes, no, maybe. Wait till I get back.
Can the system send a text message to the judges and just be like, enter this real quick authentication code, yes or no, and then just push yes or no?
That'd actually be kind of fun.
'Cause I feel like that scripting could be probably the hardest part of the whole game, is if you had to script it to almost defy the rest of the game mechanics in a sense, where you had to make real judgment calls and really subjective calls. How would you even go about making those scripted?
Because don't judges normally listen to both sides, or at least they're supposed to? So if only one person is sending you the information, now they're, that's only one side of the story.
Well, I'm just saying, like, let's say someone forges evidence, but the judge isn't able to determine that, but any human person could automatically determine it because it seems so highly motivated. And it's maybe like, let's say I'm the person in town who's constantly creating forged evidence to accuse random people. Like, imagine if, like, it was to accuse Hobbs, who just does absolutely nothing wrong all the time, and I was just constantly forging evidence against Hobbs. And it always seemed legitimate because nobody had a high enough investigation score to prove it wasn't forged, but everyone was like, no, this is incredibly forged. If Joden was seeing it, and it was the judge, he might go, yeah, this is forged. I'm not gonna buy into this nonsense. But if Joden the AI were to see it, he'd be like, yeah, oh yeah, this is completely legitimate evidence. I completely accept this into my court.
I'll just put everything in pending until I get back on.
Can you put cases into pending? That's also another question about the court systems and crimes. Can there be, like, can you have essentially...
Can there be a pending, and how much?
Yeah,
pending?
Can you essentially have, like, legal negligence where, like, you just have a stack of casework and you just never touch it?
I mean, how much is your out-of-game perspectives of people going to distort your opinions on their sentences? Like, you can have someone who, like, always follows the rules. Like, I consider myself a big rule follower. Let's say I go in and I make this super devious character, but I don't tell anyone that. Like, knowing me in real life might actually be a detriment to creating, the right sentence for that.
It's true. And that will certainly play some parts into it. I'm just really curious on how the game's going to handle straying from the normal, because I don't think any player is going to be confident enough or good enough to script what is essentially playing like a human. That's always been the hardest part about AI for me, and I think the hardest part for AI coders in general. It's very easy to make an AI that's incredibly good, and it's very easy to make an AI that's incredibly bad. It's very hard to make an AI make mistakes.
With the way that I interpreted scripting, like maybe I missed a recent update or something, but when it first came out and they announced scripting, my understanding of it was that it wasn't supposed to, like, totally replace your gameplay. It was supposed to just be, like, supplemental stuff, like managing your crops when you're offline, so all your whole farm doesn't die, that sort of thing. Like,
yeah, and that's
I wasn't expecting it to be like life or death, like giant court cases in your town managed while you're offline.
That's my curiosity too. Is can it? Because otherwise cases just pile up forever if Joden just logs off one day and is like, I'm not coming back for a month, guys. All those court cases that would normally go to me.
You better find another judge.
I'm responsible, right?
Go find a new judge. Like,
exactly. I'll have a subordinate
for that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how that whole system is going to be handled, because I think that affects a lot of the opinions on whether a prison system or not is good, just because it absolutely needs a human element. Otherwise, you get into a really weird situation where I just forge evidence on Hobbs every day. And because Joden AI is never there at the specific time that the court case happens, Hobbs always gets thrown into jail literally every day.
All right, well, what about all the people who don't know about Hobbs in real life, and they're like, who is this weird guy who's always in jail? Like, what's his problem? He has to be, like, an asshole or something.
Yeah, and it's certainly
creating his reputation.
It ruins his reputation, but it ruins it in a way that would be almost, like, unfair in a sense, because of just, like, how stacked the deck is against him, which is
maybe you should move to a new town.
Which is my ultimate problem,
just,
honestly.
Like, hint, nudge, nudge.
I feel bad for Hobbs.
That's the thing, though, is that for federal judges, they preside over an entire area generally speaking. So even in a new town, unless you were moving to a whole new county, from my understanding,
Mhm.
or even further than that, you'd still end up dealing with a Joden judge, and I could still end up accusing you, even if you would move out
Well, I mean,
of. Yeah, I know.
if you're a federal judge and you're managing that big of an area, that's gonna increase your gameplay requirements. It's just like, the number of hours a mayor is expected to put into their town versus a king. Like it's night and day.
Oh yeah.
So I think that kind of comes into play too. Like if you're just like a judge for a town, it should be pretty manageable. If you're a federal judge, well, you're gonna have to,
So
account for
that's
that with
actually the
that position.
difference is that a baron is almost always a judge,
Yeah.
because they're appointed by the duke. So they're a mayor, but they're also a federal judge. So all barons, not necessarily all barons, but a vast majority of barons, from my understanding of the game, become federal judges. And anyone that's not a baron or otherwise appointed as a federal judge, they can still be judges, but they're for like small claims or civil cases.
So
It's the
why
barons and
I'm
up.
sorry. Can you back up and explain a little bit more about why barons are naturally judges? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because they're specifically appointed by the duke to
To be a
oversee,
military leader.
to be a military leader,
Yeah.
and to adjudicate in their stead as if they're the hand of the duke in a way, because they're the ones that are specifically like the liaison to the duke. They have an
Yeah, they're
obligation to the
liaison
duke
to the
that they
Duke for
wouldn't.
their military operations.
Yes,
How many judges do you
and
know who
judicial.
have served in the military? Like normally they're straight A students who go to law school, and like that doesn't quite compute for me. I'm sorry.
Medieval stuff.
Medieval stuff
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, and that's what I'm really curious about. Like, because it does not say mayors become federal judges. They could be appointed like anyone else can, but it definitely said. Let me see if I can refine that real quick. But while we're talking about it, this I do wonder if, like I said before, if the fact that you can falsify evidence and the difficulty of falsifying evidence really comes into play. And I've never understood the criminal system just because there are more avenues currently that I'm understanding at least of falsifying evidence than there are necessarily of discovering evidence.
I was just gonna I am Nito to take over my shit. For like, if I'm gone, hey, can you just make sure my barony doesn't go to shit? That's it.
Yeah.
Well then, so while we don't have silence as Cynric looks this up, what do you think about the armor stealth?
I don't have a lot of knowledge on armor and that sort of thing. The one thing that did stand out to me is that helmet for the Dross light armor, where they literally can't look down. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think it looks all right. The leaf armor is kind of silly, but aren't Kipix as a whole just kind of ridiculous? Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Did you find that post yet, Cynric? I can't keep this conversation going.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know
So,
enough.
I found it. It's from a link from a QA session. So I'm not gonna actually watch this whole thing,
Ooh boy.
but it's the King's Court exists to address capital crimes such as murder or arson. The King's Court will be presided over by either a baron or a duke-appointed judge that resides within the town or city.
Sure, I mean the Duke appoints it, but it doesn't have to be the Baron.
Oh yeah, but it specifically says the court will be presided over by either a baron or
Yeah.
a duke-appointed.
Sweet, I have more responsibility than I thought.
If neither appointed judge is present, it may be possible for a court of commons judge to preside over the trial.
It's gonna suck on my subjects. I play lawful neutral.
So, like as a duke, I appoint more of the sheriffs, whereas others are generally appointed by either baron or myself, where I can appoint someone. Otherwise, it's a baron.
Hmm.
So, I don't know. Weird, and that's what it is.
But again, it comes to the weird illegal stuff. Like, have you guys ever watched like the video on like Lord British talking about Ultima Online?
Yes.
Yeah. So how he talked about how when he was walking around in his world, there's a new player that was going on walking around, and he helped this new player go out. But as he was walking out this new player to get to this new location, which again the new player didn't know was Lord British, the person who created the game, some bandit would go up and just jump him and like try to like take all the new player stuff and leave. Lord British would grab the guy and be like, "No, you shouldn't do that. That's very bad. That's very impolite." And then the character's like, "Okay, fine, sir. I'm sorry. I'll never do it again." And then like the next day occurs, and the character does it again right in front of Lord British. And Lord British again is like, "Hey, you shouldn't do that." And the character's like, "Look, man, you designed these features in the game. I'm gonna do them." And Lord British was like, "Oh, wait, shit. You're right."
So
So it's
yeah,
like, it's like you can't. It's like you should punish the players from PvPing, but it's like you taking away their time. It's a little much, but taking away their soul spark is enough of an initiative because of all the consequences that trickles down from that. At least that's my point of view. I could be totally wrong.
so I think that's ultimately my biggest fear with both the jail system and the crime system in general is that it's too ripe for abuse in some cases. The exploitation and opportunity costs there are just so high. Like, if I'm a smith and someone else is a smith and they're my competitor, and I can falsify evidence because I know either Joden's corrupt or I know that Joden is AFK and there's no one else to preside over this case, and so I can easily falsify evidence. Um, to fit my stuff, I can make it so that the opportunity cost for the person going to jail is so high, or they lose so much soul, etc. I feel like the jail is probably worse than the soul, just because like the opportunity cost therein of not being able to play the game, the fact that your infamy goes even higher because you're in jail, all of that, etc., would be worse for them. So I'm happy that it might be an option, but also at the same time, I don't know how many people would choose jail that would make it worth dev time in a way.
Yeah, because they have to develop all that stuff. The other thing too, it's like what crimes should warrant the removal of a soul spark? Because it's gonna suck. Like say for instance, you go home and you check your mail, and all of a sudden, bam, you owe like $5,000 for some weird realtor thing you didn't know about. It's gonna suck when somebody comes in the game. They realize, oh, they owe this much soul of their soul because of something that they were not aware of.
Basically, so that's my whole issue with the crime system is
Ignorance
it's
is not an excuse for breaking the law.
well, you don't even have to break the law. If I forge a contract in your name and you can't disprove it because I don't know, you don't have an investigator in your town and the nearest one is 5 million miles away and doesn't want to come into town, and you're just
Yeah,
kind of
So
fucked.
it's
there's
gonna
going to be an increase of demand for investigators.
but
You're
it's
going to
Potentially.
have people who are going to pick that up because it's going to be a very profitable.
it's gonna
career
ruin
for
that
them.
smith's day though, because he's gonna be like, I just wanted to make a sword. I didn't want to go to the DMV.
It'll be a fine balancing act, I think. That's gonna
Yeah,
really
it's
have to
hard.
walk a real heavy tightrope because you have so many different ways of essentially doing crimes that because you have not just forgery in that case, but you could punch someone disguised as someone else. So that would take a lot. You can just do
Mhm.
the rumor gossip mill, which doesn't even take any sort of necessary crimes that have taken place. You just made enough rumors and gossip to essentially bankrupt the person. So there has to be enough mechanical ways to fight back against that in some variety, and they have to be on not even like an equal playing field. Investigation sort of has to be higher than criminal,
Yeah.
just because investigation has what forensics and something else, but doesn't have nearly as many avenues of like finding the source of a crime. Whereas committing a crime, you have so many other skills that you can do. So that one person, there will be by and large more criminals just because if like I'm a forger, I specialize in forging, then there's gonna be a whole forging crime, and like but I want to be a cool disguise guy, and so there'll be a whole disguise line, so you'll have all of those. Whereas only people that really really like investigation are going to be investigators. So if there's only one skill line, you're going to just by natural statistics not necessarily have as many investigators. So it has to be other cool things that they can do that would be in that same area of like the exact opposite tilt. It's like if you wanted tanks in a game, you can't just have one tank. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot less tanks.
Yeah. Shit. I mean, again, it's a complicated balancing act. Like, I don't know how to solve that. I mean, without just knowing what the hell they're doing in the first place.
Basically, yeah. It's so hard because it relies on so many other systems. I think more than any other mechanic. Just because like you can play the entire game with just being like either a criminal or not, and it affects every other element of the entire game. So I'm really curious on how they're going to handle that balancing act because Caspian said it only wants like 15 to 20% of criminals, which means that you have to weigh investigation really really high. Not the penalties for the crime. That's actually the opposite. That will actually almost certainly encourage more crime, not less. Just because if the benefit of falsifying evidence and making sure that that false claim goes through is high enough, then you're going to have more criminals trying to falsify evidence because it becomes an easy way to remove rivals. Even if it eventually backfires in your face, if me killing you actually does less damage to you in a way than me putting you in jail or me making you like face a million crimes that you immediately die, then I'm going to go the easier way of making you suffer heavier than I'm going to just do a regular crime.
I just wanted to go and stab stuff.
Yeah, exactly. If going to stab stuff actually produces less penalties for the person you're stabbing than forging their name on a thing, then you're going to probably go more for the forging the name on a thing if you wanted to hamper them in a meaningful way.
Well, I mean, not like stab citizens. You know what I mean?
Of course, I know what you mean, but like I'm just saying in general, there has to be like it has to be way heavier on the investigation side, and the penalties have to be in line.
Just talking about the players though, like
Yeah.
how many of the players are going to, want to, to negatively affect them in a meaningful way versus go have fun stabbing people. Like
I don't know.
if we're
Eve has taught me
here,
that people enjoy both at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of a feeling of, oh, I just killed somebody, that's fine. But there's also a gratifying feeling, and that's why you see like the YouTube comments, of just knowing you're helping to ruin someone's day.
Oh, jeez.
And like you could look at any YouTube comment on like any video and be like, yeah, I see those people that they exist in society.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you like encourage them to ruin people's day because of the mechanics make it better for them, it's going to just encourage. Like if you were to play like Rust or Ark on any just public server, they just ruin people's day just because they'll just camp you and just be like, yeah, I'm here, I'm gonna do it.
You unconscious and force you to eat my poop.
So it's a hard balancing act, and I'm very curious if they can balance it correctly. Because I think just the murder hobo thing is fine. I think if they would just have murder hobos and they have the penalties that they do, that's fine. It's when you start making it so that you can falsify crimes that I think that the whole criminal system very becomes like this tightrope walk. Because either you want people to be able to falsify evidence, or you don't. That's kind of where I'm standing. Is like, if they're gonna have this whole falsify evidence system, it has to be good enough that people want to play it, but not so good that everyone wants to do it. Or investigation has to be really good that people want to play it, but not so great that it makes the rest of the crime system obsolete. So how do you balance both?
I think it's really going to come down to the actual alpha testing. I mean, you can
yeah,
all day long, but I think just getting the players in the environment is really what's gonna determine that, and they'll tweak it as they go. I hope
it'll be interesting. I don't know if I really like the jail system because I don't think anybody would normally take it unless they are poor in money and generally, just because the opportunity cost of not being able to play the game if I have low time as a casual player, I could never see myself taking that opportunity cost of being in jail forcibly. Because there was some bandit about that it would actually have to be a real life time served. You have to be actively in there serving that jail time. And I was like, that would be insane. Like, nobody would be like, if I only have 2 hours a day to play this game, I'm not going to be spending it in jail.
I'm not gonna AFK log on and then do something else.
Essentially, yeah. So I can't.
But it would be pretty. It would be pretty neat if though you can just like get like a jailbreak system.
It would. I think
But
that's the neatness factor. But at
but
the
you'd have to
same
opt in.
time, if for me, I always feel development is usually a zero-sum game in ways. So like,
Yeah.
what other cool mechanic could we have had if we didn't have a jail system? And if the jail system is not going to be used, except by those who are like, oh, this is really cool this one time, and I'm never going to do it again, or the people that don't have a lot of money that couldn't afford the Spark, and I find that be more agreeable to them. If it's going to be a very small case of people that would use the system, is that a system worth developing?
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm standing. Like I can make
Bottom
a case for
line,
why
I
it would be
still
cool.
think we should just have players like literally like build a small building, stick a guard outside. When the guard gets bored of keeping you in there, you're free.
I could see that, but that could also easily be terrible. Because I can imagine Nito never getting bored of just poking someone with a stick through a fence.
Sure, but eventually he has to go to work.
That's true. But I could also see him just being like, if I could bring my laptop with, like, if he could ever have security clearance to bring his laptop with him, he would have just possibly just like go on his lunch break and poke someone with a stick for fun.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna come down to your whole society there. I mean, your whole town. Are they gonna let you like terrorize someone and stick them in jail for eternity, or are they gonna say, "Hey, I think that's enough. You really need to let the guy go now."
It's true. It'll be interesting, and I think I would be more okay with that than I am with the current system that they have, just because it's more player driven. But I can also
Yeah.
see the fact that that will lead to an arc situation where you're just permanently stuck in jail by the whims of a Nito who wants to poke you with a stick. That's his personal pokey stick person.
Yeah.
So I think we'll end it here with our jail talk. I hope this has been informative for people, and you're welcome to comment and join our Discord and let us know what you think. So thank you all for watching. We'll be back hopefully next week with some cool news about map voting. But thank you all for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. So thank you all and have a great night.
Armor sucks.
Armor does suck.